Today, I want us to talk about ghosting.
Oh,
And Adele,
oh.
Adele doesn't know what we're talking about. We like to surprise each
Uh-huh.
other. So I want to talk about ghosting, and especially because in our generation, it's not as accepted. It's often considered rude. And with the younger
Mm,
generation, it's something that, yeah, we'll just ghost that person. So I want to talk about that. And especially it ties to our Janes because
mm-hmm,
as they move from one chapter to the next, they
mm,
might leave people behind. People
mm.
might not stay with them, so they may end up
Wow.
having to ghost. Yes. So Adele and I'm gonna tell a personal story. I had a conversation last week because I had an ex-boyfriend who I hadn't spoken to in years appear and wanted to talk to me. And I just ignored it for 24 hours. And I called my advisor slash therapist friend Adele and said, what should I do
Mm-hmm.
about this? And you said, if you recall, well, do you want to talk to him? And I said,
Because he
no.
had said, "Can I call you?"
Yes, can we
Or,
talk? Can I
or
call
will
you?
you? Yeah, yeah, something like that.
Yes. And you said, do you want to talk to him? Do you want to have a conversation with him? And I said, no, I don't. I don't know what I would say to him. And you said, tell him that. You said, don't ghost him because it's rude and it's not a class act. So just tell him the truth that you don't want to have a conversation with him and then wish him well in all aspects of his life. And so that's exactly what I said. Anyway, he wrote back, but I kind of, shut it down. So I felt like I honored it and then I was
Mm-hmm.
able to shelf it. And you said, well, why wouldn't you have a conversation? Tell me specifically why. It's just a conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, it doesn't serve me, but for me, particularly, it doesn't give me energy. It takes away from my energy. So if it's taken away from your greatness or your mediocreness, I don't even think that's a word. Um,
Mediocrity.
well, mediocrity, but I wanted to tie it to greatness. I was
Oh.
making up a word. Before I forget, I want to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
our Janes, our users, viewers are aware that we have a freebie for identifying what you want. So if you go to the About section, you'll find it. And
All
it's
right, tell me what you
very
liked about
helpful.
it, Vicki. What do you like about the freebie?
It's concise, it's short, and it hits the points on how to identify what you want. It's simple information, advice that someone might say, "Oh, I knew that, but I just needed to hear it again."
Okay, okay. Um,
So my question is whether friends, relationships, whatever,
yeah,
to ghost or not ghost.
okay.
Break it
I
down.
think there's something a little bit bigger here. First, I want
Yes.
to acknowledge the fact that I don't think we can speak for the younger generation, even though we do have children. I somehow have a feeling your child probably wouldn't go someone, and I have a
Probably not.
feeling mine wouldn't either. I'm not saying, oh, we've raised these amazing children, but I'm just saying, therefore, I don't think we can necessarily say the younger generation are ghosters, but that's neither here nor there. What I feel like you're saying, there's a few nuggets here.
Hmm.
One is when you're embarking on something new,
Hmm.
you inevitably need to say goodbye to some things because you're either moving places, your time is now less devoted to X. Like for me, it was a lot of friends during the raising of my children period. My children were in school. And so the mothers and I had that in common. It was a season, you know, then take a move to Mexico, and finding these other kind of like spirits that want adventure and have had adventures. And um, have I left all of those mommy friends behind? No, but it's almost like I'm in that transition period because I hold some of them. Some are like the memories are just so dear
Mhm.
And then there's others, the memories are so dear, and I still want a connection. So it's a question of, meaning I want to maintain the friendship,
Sure.
right? To bring it forward, even though, physically I'm elsewhere, even though my attentions are elsewhere in terms of like, I'm working with you. And, and I travel with other friends who aren't those mommy friends because it's just not their thing. But I'm still actually, it's a little awkward for me right now because I have a few people who I'm not keeping in touch with. One who not that long ago called, I haven't called her back. So it's not more like, oh, I've decided over. It's just like almost I'm doing this because it's a lot. And that's why I say inevitably, when you go on to create something new, no matter what it is,
Mm.
you just have so much time and space and energy. And so how to, some things I think naturally just kind of fizzle out in a beautiful way. And I wouldn't call
Mhm.
that ghosting, though it might feel that way to the other person. But how do you address it, right? And so I'm like kind of throwing that out to the Janes out there, right? Because I don't think there's any one right way. And yet, yeah, you want to be respectful. You want to honor what that person did for you in their lives. And so, going back to the respect thing, just as another human being, like your ex-boyfriend texting you saying, can I call you? It's like, that, I don't wish for that, but I also, want to just do the proper thing, which is to put a period at the end of this, which
Right.
he's kind of like removed the period. I want to put the period back. So, I'm wondering too, like if it's a bigger thing, like, some people find a lot of value in creating a ritual when something ends, whether it's writing that letter that you never sent to somebody or even to a physical place,
But do
right?
you
Like a
have,
goodbye.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I have a question when you're ready.
Yeah. So I'm just, oh, yeah.
So you've said a lot of interesting things, and I like how you've talked about the friendships that you've made and that you want to stay in touch with these people, and that resonates with me, especially with the mommy friends. But there are relationships that you move beyond,
Right. So do we
right?
want to just talk about the relationship aspect of moving on in the
Yes.
Jane? Okay.
Yes. Let's talk about that a
Yeah,
little bit.
no, I mean, yeah, and you know what? I'm kind of a wimp. I'm kind of a wimp. I am. Like at a party, they call it the Irish ghosting or the French exit.
Mm-hmm.
I just slowly go. First of all, it's because when I'm the hostess, I find it interrupts the party of people
Mm-hmm.
coming up and saying goodbye to you.
Yes.
And I think it's like this really gorgeous thing just to kind of go away into the night.
Meanwhile, where did she go?
Plus, it's like it does let me off the hook though, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm also one of the earlier people to leave. So that's where the wimpiness comes in. But what do you do? Do you say to a friend, hey, I'm so glad you called, but I just don't have the energy for this relationship at the moment? Like
No,
like an
well, I
ex-boyfriend, you can
can't.
kind of do that with more easily because it did have an ending,
Yeah.
like it already had an ending and you're just reaffirming.
And to be clear, it was a short few months. It was a long
Yeah,
distance
yeah, yeah,
relationship. It
yeah.
wasn't, the love of my life or anything.
Right, right. So I don't have an answer because I'm a bit of a wimp and also
You're
I
a
don't
wimp.
know.
That's what.
Yeah, I am. But
Well,
I also like, let's say if I'm going to decide not to be a wimp, okay, and
mhm.
I have one or two friends who have called and I haven't called back.
Yeah, and
So what do? I
that
call and I
doesn't.
say, hey, thanks so much for the call, but I just you're in that pile of people. Like, you don't say that? What do you say?
No,
So do you
then
not call
you
back, or
you
do you
call
keep
them.
sending little texts here and there?
Uh,
But then it's like my brain is like in this direction, that direction, this direction, and I can only contain so much. And I like to be focused in my relationships, in my energy. Like, I sent like 10 pictures of chairs today to a friend. She's a children's book illustrator,
Oh, okay, sure. That makes sense.
and so,
Just like,
but I'm saying, like, when I'm in it, I'm in it. And I don't want to have the sense that I leave friends behind. I don't. But then
um,
some people could listen to it and be like, well, I used to be your friend and now I'm not. But
I didn't think about that. That bitch.
I mean, but no,
No,
I
it's
mean,
just
some people really are friends for a season.
yes. And I just read or saw a podcast or something about
Mhm,
7 years. Every 7 years, we collect new
mhm,
friends. I don't know if I
mhm,
believe that, but I
mhm,
started, made me think, am I
mhm,
collect? Kind of. Yeah. When I
mhm,
moved to
mhm.
Mexico, I did. But
Yeah,
one
so I
thing
just
you're
like
not
going back to
addressing is
what'd you
the
say?
wimpiness. You're not, that's the people pleaser.
Yeah, because I'm scared to disappoint.
Yeah. So I,
But it's a weird thing because you disappoint people more when you hide. But I'm not
hmm,
even hiding. I just don't know how to handle it. I don't know how to handle it. What would you suggest? What am I supposed to do?
it depends on if you want this person in your life. I too feel when people reach out and I haven't talked to them in a while, then I'm, oh, hi. Yes, I was, and usually
Mhm,
I've been thinking about
mhm,
them and it's
mhm,
kind of a karmic, oh, yes. And then back and forth and let's get together sometime or when I'm in the States or you're in Mexico,
mhm,
whatever. And then it doesn't happen. So
mm.
it's just a lot
All
of,
right. Well, I'm gonna call these two people. There's a few
okay,
people I need
good.
to write that I have not
Just
been on top of,
why
but
don't
I
you
have
write
to
them a long
ignore.
email like Jane Austen style?
That's so funny because I had this one friend, not the friend I mentioned already, who called me a bunch of times, and I'm just also not a huge phone chatter. And then
Yeah.
also I find it hard to speak when you haven't spoken in a while.
Hmm.
And so I wrote her a long email, like a letter, and I was like, oh, here I am in France, and I bought some postcards. So that is definitely more, that feels that feels good to me, right? So I
Hmm.
think what you're now suggesting is if you're a Jane and you're moving forward and there's some people you're leaving behind, some you can articulately put a period after because it feels correct to do, and no feelings would be hurt if they feel the period being put at the end of that chapter. The ones there you just have to be more careful about, but don't have quite as much energy for. Maybe you can find a way that is palatable for you and allows like just some space for them still exist in your wider orbit.
Nice. I like that. I like that you've opened up your friend world and been able to sort of put them on the shelf on here's this one, this one, this one. These are, I call it my inner circle, my second
Mm-hmm.
circle.
Yeah, and it gets shuffled, right? It gets
Of
shuffled.
course. And sometimes
And
people who are inner
but what I like,
move
what you
out.
just made me think of is, yeah, I can write emails feel nice to me, you know?
Hmm. It's a natural thing for you to write.
Yeah,
And people like getting letters or emails, so
I know. Someone the other day was saying how they get letters from their grandchildren and it's the only piece of real mail they get. And I was like,
I
wow,
love that.
made me want to write even more.
All right, any parting words?
It
Ooh,
is okay to sometimes leave people behind. Like it
yeah.
is okay.
No, I know. Yeah. I mean, I have a few
And you
people
can, yeah.
in my life that I've had to leave because we just didn't see things the same way.
Hmm. Okay.
I will never ghost you, my dear.
I know.
Sometimes,
Oh,
though, I have to tell people sometimes
yeah.
she doesn't
Yeah.
respond to her text, but she's getting better.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that another day, how you redlined me.
She'll never let me forget that.
No, well, because my heart still feels it, but okay. All right,
Okay, love you, bye.
bye. Bye.
Besos.